Hey, everybody, we are back with another episode of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast. And today, guys, we are going to be bringing some fire. My guest and I just spent about 15 minutes going through a lot of really good nuggets. And I realized we should probably hit record at some point and actually start the conversation. I'm going to introduce him here in a second. And before I do, like on all the episodes, I'm going to bring you up our sponsor, Wisconsin Discount Properties, sponsors all these episodes. Today, guys, I'm going to talk about a deal that I just got word from one of our buyers who purchased a deal in Crivets from us. And he closed on it maybe 2 weeks ago, I think. He's already done with pretty much most of the rehab. And we were asking him today, hey, how do you think you're going to do on this? What are the numbers shaking out to be? He is estimating after he sells it, if he gets what he thinks he can get for it, he's going to net $70,000 to $80,000, guys. And that was a deal that was, if you're on our buyers list, that was in your inbox. So if you didn't buy it, that's the FOMO I like to create to hopefully get you to start making some offers. And if you're not on the buyers list, get on the buyers list, because these are the kinds of deals we're putting out every single week in your inbox, 6 a.m. They hit it. To get on the buyers list, just go to WisconsinDiscountProperties.com, plug your information in, and you'll get automatically added to the buyers list where you can start seeing the deals every single week. With that, let me bring in our guest today. I'm honored to have Mr. John Big Money Maxi on the call. What's up, John?
Hey, Corey. Thanks for having me. Very excited.
Well, I'm excited to have you on, man. We're going to be talking today some tech, some AI, how to utilize that in your REI business. If you're listening to this and you're like old school and you don't want to hear about that, I would encourage you just to hang on, because, you know, maybe it's not something you want to incorporate some of these things, but maybe if you could find somebody who you could bring onto your team, or maybe bring a third party on that can help implement some of these things, I think it could really help you accelerate your own business, or your, you know, whatever you're trying to accomplish, and not maybe even just business, but any area of your life. So John, with that, why don't we start out? Tell everybody just a little bit about like your educational background and your W-2 background first before we get into the real estate stuff.
Yeah. So I am not native to Wisconsin, so I actually grew up in Ohio State graduate. Yeah, I know, right? It was a good year for us, though. So I got my degree in psychology there. And then I moved down south for a while, down to New Orleans, went to LSU down there. I'm a huge nerd, so I went to school until there's no more school. So actually have my PhD in human physiology.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so like I said, I'm a professional nerd with a piece of paper to prove it.
Nice.
And when I was there, basically, started teaching myself how to write computer code, and then transition from the academia route into being a data scientist. So like right after I got out of my graduate program, I joined a startup, and we were building a headset that was actually like, we're trying to take your brain waves and read them and understand them to like measure your level of engagement. So you could imagine, I'm not working there, so it didn't take off, but the idea was, right, like what content are you most engaged with? What piece of music are you most engaged with? So if you're wearing the sensor, you can kind of get that feedback into like, oh, like that was my favorite part of that song, because we parsed the brainwaves to understand when you were like really into it. And then you could queue up more songs that had that kind of snippet in it, or
oh my goodness,
that kind of work, or that kind of, TV show, or you can imagine employers, putting this thing.
That's what I was thinking, dude.
Like, were you engaged on that sales call, right? Were you spacing out?
Yes.
When were you really paying attention? And so it's supposed to be kind of like a biofeedback device. So, and then I've kind of from there kept going into the data science and machine learning world at some other places and other companies since then.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that idea. It's too bad that thing failed, because that sounds really cool. As an employer, I'm like, dude, that'd be so awesome to have for our team. And I could just be like, dude, you don't pay attention at all when we're doing this. How do we get you more engaged? It would allow us to ask a lot better questions and provide probably better training, better feedback for our team, all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure somebody will pick that baby back up, and in a few years, I'm sure it'll be something relevant. But wow, that's fascinating, man. So you went from psych to human phys to data.
That's right.
Yeah, that's crazy. And most of that data stuff is all self-taught?
Yeah, so I ran into the project I was working on in my graduate studies. I remember working in Excel and just being like, this the way I'm doing this just seems really inefficient. Like this
Yeah.
cannot, because I'm working with small data sets and I'm like, there's professionals out here who are doing this with much more complicated data sets than I am, and they're
Yeah.
not doing it like this. And I was like, what do
Yeah.
they do? And so yeah, then I taught myself how I was like, oh, they use Python for this. They use computer programming languages to do this stuff. So I'll do that too. Um,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then yeah, so just took a bunch of online courses, all self-taught, and then just kind of kept, basically trying to get better and better and read more and learn more and just keep perfecting the craft.
Wow.
And then yeah,
I
just
love that.
parlayed that into a career that I've been very happy with.
That's amazing. Now, not only that, but I didn't hear anything, John, where when you went to school, you also graduated with a real estate, degree or anything. But now you also own 21 Doors, correct?
That's right. That's
So
right.
self-taught there as well, it sounds like.
I mean, you could say self-taught, but a lot of it has been just the awesome community. I think so. I didn't own anything until I moved to Wisconsin,
Okay.
and when I came here, I started showing up to the RIAs and talking to people, and I knew I wanted to buy, and I got a lot of help and support and encouragement from all the investors around here. They're like, "Yeah, welcome. Yeah, come on, go buy stuff. Let's do it."
Yeah.
I actually tell people that you were one of the first people I talked to when I
Yeah.
moved here,
Okay.
because I was trying to fit. This is 2020, somebody's 5 years ago, and just like
Yeah.
called you out of the blue, and they're like, "Well, talk to Corey. He's doing some good stuff." And it's like, yeah, I want to. I told you, well, I want to start wholesaling. And you're like, well, why do you want to do that? It's
Yeah.
hard. I was like, yeah, well, I want to buy some rentals. And you're like, well, why don't you just buy rentals? And then I was like, and I looked around, and I'm like, for the first time in my life, like my wife and I both had jobs. I was like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we could just buy rentals because I've been always planning on doing it, but we've been students for so long. The
Sure.
thought of actually buying something was kind of like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you were like, well, just buy them then.
Sounds like I had some really profound advice at the time,
Yeah,
John.
exactly. I was like, that
Yeah.
is a lot easier than doing all this marketing. I will just buy
Yeah.
some. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of
Was
support,
that
a
a
lot of
good move?
encouragement.
Do you think that's a good move, John, for people? Because my advice maybe isn't always correct, right? So, I mean, now that you've had some years to reflect back on it, do you think that was the right decision at the time?
I think it was for me,
Okay.
100%. I've I've always wanted to do. I don't say wholesaling anymore. I say I've always wanted to do direct to seller marketing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's you're at the bottom, you're at the foundation of everything, right? So I've always
Mm-hmm.
thought of it as a pyramid. You got the direct to seller stuff, then you got the flippers, and you got the
Mm-hmm.
landlords, and then you've got the MLS, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you can buy anywhere in that pyramid, and you can
Mm-hmm.
sell anywhere in that pyramid. You want to buy at the bottom and sell it towards the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always wanted to be down there.
Mm-hmm.
But with our working situation, that it was what it was. I learned a lot by just buying and just setting up. My system, in a nutshell, has always been to find good property managers,
Mm-hmm.
because last year I didn't, but mostly I've always been working full time.
Okay.
And so, my job's always been underwrite, make sure it fits, make sure I
Yeah.
got the right financing lined up, and then manage the property manager.
Yes. Yeah. You are a good student, John. I'm sure that's probably exactly what I told you back in 2020. I don't remember exactly the conversation, but that's about what I tell everybody. One of the things that happens a lot of times is I get calls from people like yourself, John, frequently, and they want to know what to do and all this stuff. And a lot of people love wholesale. And I'm not knocking it. Obviously that's my business, and I don't tell people not to wholesale because I'm afraid they're going to be competition or something like that. It's really just genuine advice, for people. And it depends on the goal, right? Your goal was long-term buy and hold wealth, and your roadblock was time, right?
Yep.
Like, how do I build a time? And now you're doing some of your own direct to seller marketing and things like that. Obviously, now the time commitment to that can be pretty extensive just to get one deal, but you're getting it at the price where For people who are busy, they've got good W-2s, they just want long-term wealth. A lot of times, yeah, you're going to pay more for that property. You're going to pay that wholesaler or however you're sourcing that deal their fee, but you don't have, like, if time is money, you don't have to give up all that time and energy and effort to go source that deal. You can just be doing exactly what you did. Like, let's just start building the portfolio, get it in the portfolio, let time start working on our behalf, let the tenants start paying the debt down, let the property start appreciating, and move on until we can be in a position maybe later down the road where then we can do what you're doing now. So now when did you make that transition to start doing some direct to seller stuff?
So I basically took last year. I had kind of done it on and off with like some mailers here and there.
Okay.
Last year, I basically took we'll call it a sabbatical
Okay.
from my work to get into it and start actually kind of trying to build out the systems and make it consistent. And so that was last year, and then a little bit into the beginning of this year, and then I went back to my full-time job.
Okay.
And changing some strategies along with that. But it was kind of like, let's take this year and get the experience and see what that looks like, what I'm good at there, what I'm not good at there, where I need to bring in help and what I can do on my own.
That's awesome, man. And I think that's really a good lesson for a lot of people too. When we started in this business, we did a bunch of different exit strategies. We did a bunch of different things. We tried a bunch of different things. And then we figured out, hey, we're really good at these few things. We're not good at these things. And then we can go out. And one of my favorite books, we're reading it now in our business, and I've referenced it in the last couple episodes, I think, but it's Who Not How by Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Yep.
And it's such a simple concept, but as I listen to it, it's like, I'm re-listening to it. I'm just like this, duh. Like some of these roadblocks that are keeping us from growing, it's just a who problem, right? It's not a how problem. It's just like, so I'm getting in right now in our business back into certain things in the sales side of things. And I'm going back through and I'm kind of doing the do to figure out what are the things I want to keep and what are the things I don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to find somebody or potentially a tool that maybe we could talk about to replace that and have that do the work for me so that I don't have to be the who doing the how. Right, I can have a different who or a technology or some kind of system to replace me in that how.
Yeah, it's a really good book.
It's a great book. It's one of my favorites. So a lot of his stuff is great. Anything I read from Hardy is really good. So talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing. So as the data scientist guy in you, mm-hmm. What are some of the ways you're using data or technology in your real estate business today and in this current environment we're in?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always the simple things that I've always done is, I guess, be very repetitive and purposeful in tools that aren't necessarily AI, but just like running numbers on things. So, okay. And actually, I'll tie this into who, not how, right? So when I was early on, I was like, you know what? I'm so good with an Excel. I'm way better than Excel than all these other people. Like I can build my own Excel spreadsheet. And then I was like, I'm spending more time building this Excel sheet than I am analyzing anything.
Yeah.
And so I moved away from that. I was like, you know what? There's a bunch of really good tools out there. Let's just use those and be every time. Here's how I run my numbers. I run it through the same system every mm-hmm. time. If I get my green check marks, we're all good. If I don't, we're not all good.
Yeah.
And so like for me, that looks like pretty simple stuff, like just using DealCheck, Rehab Estimator Pro, just to make sure that I'm going through the process and checking the buttons. And that's kind of like phase one, really, as far as I am, as far as data.
Is DealCheck is that a tool? Is that just what something you call your spreadsheet?
No, it's a tool. It's a software system that you can get. I think they have free access. They also have a paid version as well. But basically, you can't do literally everything that you would want. Like you're not going to do sub twos and like creative stuff in there necessarily. But they have templates set up that you can do some customizing for. That are, this is a rental property, this is a flip, this is a BRRRR, this is a wholesale deal.
Okay.
And you basically go in and set up, I got to have such and such LTV so I know I can get a loan, or I got to be at such and such cash flow per door, or I want to have this IRR, or, whatever your criteria are, you
Yeah.
set that in there. And then when you go to analyze property, you type an address, it pulls the public data, and you just like fill out like,
Oh,
if I'm getting my bank that does a 30-year mortgage, here's that template. If I'm looking at my bank with a 20-year AM, here's that template. If I'm hard money, here's
oh,
that template. And you kind of just make sure your taxes and
wow.
insurance and everything are good to go. And then you look for your green check marks.
That's awesome. Like I need to get that tool. We have spreadsheets too, like same thing. Like we have our spreadsheets that we run and that's how we, decide what we're going to lock up. But I think that's a great tool because you have the different templates in there. You just set it up once, you do the work once, and then
Yep.
boom. What I love about that, John, and I think this is a good nugget for anybody out there listening. So when we put a deal out, as you know, we send you a picture in an email. You click on the picture, it brings you up a buyer resource folder. We call it in there. We've got an inspection report. We've got a video. We've got all this sort of stuff, right? Sometimes some people that are a little bit more traditional and old school, and I'm not saying this is wrong or right, this is just the way some people prefer to do it. They do not like our system because they need to walk through the property,
Mm-hmm.
right? They have to physically be there to get the emotional feel of the property. What I love about what you're doing is you're taking out all emotion and you're making it strictly about your buy box and what the data says. If it checks all the greens, we buy. If it doesn't check the greens, we don't buy. It's not, ooh, I really like how this one feels when I walk in, or I really like that. It's just data.
Yep.
And that makes it, I think, for anybody looking to grow and scale at a faster pace, it's going to make your life so much easier to do it that way versus having to go walk through it and just get the feel of it. A lot of times we can talk ourselves out of deals real easy, right? Like
Yep.
we can find a lot of reasons not to buy a deal. That's scary. It's risky. These are big numbers we're talking about, right? But what you've built is a system here to take out all of that emotion, it sounds like, and just make it about the numbers.
As much as possible, definitely. I mean, and and I guess the thing that I would tie back into as we jump into like more complicated AI pieces is that
Mm-hmm.
all of those things are built on data. So anything that is wrong with how you don't like the AI, what it's doing, it's because of the data that created it. And so the
Yeah.
foundation of all of this stuff is the data. So whether it means you have an AI tool or you have a spreadsheet or you have, DealCheck, if you put the wrong data into it, you're going to get the bad results. Like I
Mm-hmm.
could make a
Garbage in,
spreadsheet.
garbage out.
Yeah, I can make a spreadsheet and I can make every deal check off all the stars. But if I just made up the data, if I didn't look up the property taxes, if I didn't
Yeah.
confirm like what have I been paying in insurance, right, and put the right insurance amount in there, you can get green checks, but it doesn't mean it's going to work out.
Yeah, for sure. I see that too on the flip side, John. When you mentioned Rehab Estimator Pro, so those of you guys that don't know, this is a tool that you can use. Like, so if you're not familiar with rehab costs, for example, it's a great tool to kind of start getting familiar with rehab costs. You can, look at the videos or inspection reports, or if you're walking through some properties, and going that route, you can start plugging some of these things in. But just like what you're saying, John, what I've noticed is you have to maybe get with some people who know their numbers, because when you first take that thing out of the box, it's going to have a preset
Yep.
national average type of a number in there.
Yep.
Right now, I live in Door County, Wisconsin. I can tell you just from experience in the last year, we've started to do some more projects up here. Our costs up here are literally like double what I can get for in Green Bay, and I'm an hour north.
Yep.
So you got to kind of know your region and what your contractor going rate is, what the prices of the materials should all be roughly about the same, but your labor costs and all that stuff. So if you just take it out of the box, like what John's saying, and you think it's just going to know exactly your costs and your everything else, you're going to miss out on a lot of deals potentially, because that thing could be really overinflating what the rehab costs might actually be in your specific area or with your
Yep.
connections that you might have, right?
Over or under for sure. Yeah. You want to, again, yeah, you got to
Yep.
check the numbers, look at them. It's really good to make sure you get everything accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be really helpful if you also ask a friend or shop on Home Depot to double check.
Yeah. And I think that's a great piece of advice. When you're first starting out using these tools, just get a couple different eyes on it and get a couple different people's opinions on it. Contractors, when we used it, we used to use it years ago, and we would have our contractor we would get their quote, and then we would compare it to this, and we'd just kind of keep doing that for a little bit until we could tweak the numbers and get pretty dialed in on what our contractor was
Yep.
going to be charging us for this stuff. And then it was super helpful. Then it made it really easy, and especially as we were training people, how to coming up with rehab costs can be one of the biggest factors when they're locking a deal up for you.
Yep.
Might not know all the stuff. So having that tool for them when they started out with our actual costs was important, but you got to keep updating it too. Prices change.
Yep.
Right. We've definitely seen that over the last few years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, those are two great nuggets. So DealCheck and Rehab Estimator Pro. I think we actually have a discount link for Rehab Estimator Pro, which I can put in the show notes if I still have it. I'll check on that. But if anybody wants to use that tool, we'll throw a little link in the show notes for you guys with the discount code on that. John, what are some other things you're using on the data tech AI side of things?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I mentioned earlier. So I do have a CRM since I'm doing direct to seller marketing. Been using Resimply, and they've released a number of tools now into that kind of help a lot of different functions. So they have like an AI texter built in, so you can actually have the AI texting and responding to your leads. And I would say I'm still early phase of testing that, but it's supposed to take in the other communication and notes that you've left on the person. So it's all has the context built in of who is it actually talking to, as opposed to a preset drip campaign template.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I've been liking in that they have it built in, but you can do it on your own too, is feedback coaching on sales calls or lead management calls.
They have it built into the CRM?
Yep. So whenever I get done on a call, calls are recorded, like all my phone numbers that route through there. Like I get those recordings, and so they're just a button now. You can get lead manager score, get acquisition manager score, and it gives you a whole summary of like, a lot of it's broken down into timeline, price, motivation, things of like, well, you talked about this and that was good, but you didn't go too deep into how long it's been vacant. Like they mentioned it's been vacant for a long time, and you acknowledged, but you didn't like, oh, well, is it going to be vacant another 6 months type of thing? Or
that's so good.
Gives you a score on there, and so those summaries are helpful.
Yeah. Can you train it to pick up on other things you want it to listen for, or is it not really customizable as far as the tool?
Right. So it's their tool, so it's not customizable for me to do. But that's where I've now moved kind of into another area where I've now been spending probably more time than I should, just because I like it as a fun activity and as a professional nerd, I just have a lot of fun doing it. Is making customizations within ChatGPT. So
yes.
So in there now I now can do things, obviously I'm not retraining the model from scratch, but I can give it all the appropriate context I want for what I want it to do. So I've made my own sales manager GPT, where I've taken a lot of research into like, what are the best lead qualification frameworks? What is the best way to ask questions? And basically put together these extensive research docs, which you can use AI to help you build, right?
Right.
And then feed that back into my custom tool. So then I can now role play with it and say like, hey, I talked to a person and they were in this situation. Like, let's mock up that conversation.
Yeah.
Or like, here's all the notes from my CRM on this person. What should I talk to them about to him next?
Yes.
And it'll give me like stuff going into the call that I should be bringing up.
Yeah, we do that too, and that's been a great tool for us. I think we started it up around January, and for me as the trainer for our team, my big issue was trying to sit and listen to all of these 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 minute calls and just try to like stay on top of that to give the team feedback. Well, as soon as we got this going, I mean, now we have it set up to our VA puts the transcript into the GPT. It spits out with whatever prompt we've set up for it to always analyze it with. Now it spits out the report, and then that zaps to Slack and pings the rep in Slack, so they get their little report
Nice.
on that call every day. They're getting multiples of these. So, and we trimmed it down. We had it pretty extensive for a while as far as all of the feedback it was giving them, and it would score each part of the call and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, you can get it really robust, but with the amount of volume of calls they're doing and that kind of thing, it was almost becoming like nobody was reading it because it was too much.
Yeah.
So now it's like, give us the 2 things they did really well and the 2 opportunities they missed for every single call. And it's kind of compressed it a little bit. I know we're missing some things, but I just need them to read it on a regular basis and check it. But it's really good for us. We do training every morning on certain things. And so for us now, we'll just pull up some of the GPTs and see what GPT said. And then we'll listen to the call together sometimes and compare what GPT picked up versus what the score, what the rep is thinking they said. And a lot of times GPT is spot on.
When you do that, do you have it where it's all based on the prompt with the whatever version of ChatGPT you're using, or do you have like customized versions of ChatGPT where you've uploaded all the additional training files and context and done all that stuff?
Yeah, we put it into the customized GPT, and then we just have the same prompt for that custom GPT every time. And that, to your point, what was really cool is I had all these training videos for new hires, and I just took and uploaded all of the training videos to that, for the lead intake calls and our script. And then, we've added other resources of people who we also get training from as well with those. And that's been really cool. And then we still have to tweak it. We still had to tweak it a little bit because it was still missing a few things, but it's pretty good after you spend a little time training it, right? I mean, have you had that same experience, John?
Yeah, I think, as I say, that's worth, like, people have all these awesome prompts, honestly. But I think that's where the real magic comes, like when you're already in that field doing it, and then you upload all the appropriate background knowledge that you expect someone, instead of saying, act like a sales coach, at the beginning of your prompt, you're actually saying, here's all the things, like it knows before you talk to it now. Here's all the things a sales coach knows. So now tell me how this call went.
Yeah, our team has also done this. So we all share the same GPT account, so that we're all using the same, so our VA can access it and I can access it and all this stuff. And I think what they've done now, we have a guy that does social media for us. And so I try not to go on Facebook ever anymore. It's like too much of a distraction for me, and it's not super productive, but I'm still like, it's important. You got to be out there. You got to be on social media. So we have a guy that posts now, but they've trained a GPT off of all of my podcasts and videos and everything else that I put out over the years. And so now, like, this is going to sound terrible. So if you guys are commenting with me on social media, it's not me, but it sounds like me probably because they'll plug it in. They'll say, what would Corey say back to this person? And it like knows me and it responds. And so far, nobody's reached out and been like, dude, that was really rude, or you should have never said that to me. So it's working so far.
That's good.
It's working so far. But again, it's a who, not how thing. Now I don't have to be sitting on social media responding to all of these, comments or even posting any content.
Or
I have a GPT now that can come up with the thing like I would say it.
Yeah. And you didn't also have to make a specific, 10-page frequently asked question document, or how would Corey react to this or that, right? You already had this other content. You had this other stuff, and now you could repurpose that into a new tool.
Exactly.
Which is the really cool thing. It's like, we're talking about, oh, did you customize this? Are you using that? What this kind of all gets to is it's a new way to build a computer application. Like, you want it to do something, and what you want it to do. So now, instead of having to be a computer programmer to build a whole thing and say, like, well, what happens in this situation and that situation, and where do I store this piece of information in a database, and how does the application grab it at the right time? You can just kind of like, you can either do, have it do research for you on a topic you want it to research, or you can dump everything you won't think or know or want to talk about on a subject into a document, put it in ChatGPT, and now it's going to respond like the way, and like you said, there's tweaking and things that go, but I mean, the possibilities are endless as far as what you could get it to do. If there's a problem you're struggling with, you now have the power to make an app to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. It's people that are around, like kids always joke. They're like, you and mom are obsessed with ChatGPT. And I'm like, yeah, we are. Like any weird, kids are so inquisitive.
Mm-hmm.
John, you have what, 4 kids too?
Yep, 4 kids.
More kids, the same here. So they, we get asked a lot of questions every day. I have no idea what the answer is, but chat usually knows.
Yep.
So I usually plug it into chat and I can answer my kids' inquisitive questions now without me having to feel like an idiot, not knowing 90% of what they're asking me. So that's pretty phenomenal. Can you just explain real briefly, John, because it's pretty simple,
Mm-hmm.
but for those that are out there listening, because this was a big thing for me, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to hire a who to build out my custom GPTs. And then my brother actually was the one that was like, dude, no, you just go here, you click here, and then you just start training it. And I was like, what? So can you just explain to people real quick, like the steps to make a custom GPT in chat?
Yeah. So if I think you need to have a chat GPT. Obviously you need an account. I don't know if you need the pro plan or not to make.
Oh, okay. Which is like $20
$20
or whatever
a month for the pro plan. Yeah. I mean, I held out for a long time. Now I'm paying for it. I'm glad. But once you have that there, you basically click your profile picture. There's like a little My GPTs thing that comes down, and you get, it's like build one, and there's just a little box there. So there's a describe to build, so you can just type like into the box, like build me one, and tell it what you want, and it itself will basically put together what it thinks you need to build that. So that's kind of like the easiest step, like lowest barrier to entry way to do it. Then there's also another way where you can, there's a tab that says, I think, configure. Okay. And you can go in there, and then same idea, like you give it a name, like what do you want to call it, so you can find it in your menu and describe it and stuff. And then you got to tell it, well, what do you want me to do? So you have to give it instructions, like, are you a jerk? Are you a nice person? Are you, a copywriter? Are you a data analyst? Are you, a CEO? Whatever role, way you want it to talk, type of thing in the instructions. How to respond to user inputs. That would all go in there, and that's the part that we talked about tweaking stuff. That's where that comes in. You start testing, like, I don't like how this talked, or whatever. That's where that goes. But then also then there is, add files button. And so, like easiest example, let's say you just bought, I don't know, let's say you bought Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? And you got the PDF of it, and you want Robert Kiyosaki's advice on your next deal. You can drag and drop that PDF into that ChatGPT, and it's going to read the whole book. And you can say, you are Robert Kiyosaki. Here's how you think. Click build.
That's amazing.
And then you can start chatting with them. It's like, yeah, I got this deal I'm analyzing. It like looks like this or that. And then, he'd be like, well, that's a dumb idea. I don't know. I haven't built that one. I don't know what he'd say, but
that's that's kind of one I want to kind of build on. So it sounds like fun. He's got a lot of books too. So you could probably just get a bunch of the books, and then it's really, you're really getting all of his advice, right? Whatever he was saying.
That brought to mind too, actually. So I think, because I'm thinking like, I don't have a lot of PDFs, but at one point, I think the Wiscoria, when you joined, they gave you a PDF of several books. I think that might have been one of them. So it's 10X on there. So like, you could drag and drop a couple books from those and get a hybrid Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki, sales or investment advisor.
You just reminded me, John, you and I think are pretty similar age. Did you ever watch Short Circuit growing up?
I don't know that one.
Oh, dude, classic 80s movie. You got to go check it out if you haven't watched it. But anyway, it's this robot, and he like becomes like a person. And anyway, he's at this chick's house, and he's just reading through all these books, and he's just throwing it. That's what I'm thinking of as you're talking about, ChatGPT. It's like Short Circuit, proactive, or had a premonition back in the 80s that this was going to be happening, at some point. Talk about, though, you and I, before we hit record, something else that I had never thought of, and I love this idea. You were talking about sort of building your own board of advisors within chat. Talk a little bit about that and some of the ideas or thoughts you had around that, because I think this is pretty cool for anybody out there listening in any stage of their investing journey or any other thing they're trying to build.
Yeah. So the idea is that, right, most big time companies, even small companies, could benefit from a board of advisors that have been through it before. And, they're not running the business, but they can tell you what you need to do, things to think about and when. And so one of the things that you can do is apply that to chat GPT in kind of the same way, where instead of building that knowledge base for your custom GPT of here's knowledge on, how to be a Facebook marketer, and here's like the way people write on Facebook, et cetera, you can feed it like, here's all the information I have on Grant Cardone, because we were talking about it. Here's all the information I have on Robert Kiyosaki. Here's all the information I have on Ken McElroy, whoever. I did a webinar on this recently. It's like, you can do fictional people. Like, do you want Captain Kirk on your board? Do you want Yoda on your board?
Nice. That's cool.
And so what you do then is, and again, you can use ChatGPT to help you do this, is you create these extensive dossiers on these people that you then upload into ChatGPT and say like, okay, you're not one person, you are all of these people together or separately within this one conversation. And so
that's amazing.
So I was playing around with that the other day, and basically built it, got the people in there, and so like, I want to rebuild my my wholesaling company from the ground up. Like, what do I need to, like, where am I going to start? What do I need to go with? And so it just spits out each of like the 9 people on the board has their own viewpoint, right? Some of them were marketing experts, some of them were deal structuring experts, some of them were negotiation experts, and they all kind of bring, their own flavor. And then you can start saying, all right, well, so those are all the things I want to consider. Well, then what would the actually blueprint be, right? And they'd be like, well, phase 1, weeks 1 through 3, you got to build out these things. And it's like, your mission statement and who are you marketing to and like all that stuff. And so it's like, okay, well, these 2 board members, you guys were the ones that were really focused on the mission statement. Like, help me craft that. Like, here's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, what am I missing? How would you reword that to target those people? Or, what would I? And so then you can just kind of go deeper and pull in the board members, right? That had that viewpoint, and then you can jump back out and be like, okay, so it was just a test of like, could I set up this board, and would they give me like eventually actionable steps, right? Like very discrete things to do on a timeline of like, all right, here you go, here's your 90-day wholesale company.
That's amazing. And they know your area, right? If you train, because you have to, if you build your own GPT or just your own premium chat, you can put in like, I'm John, I live in this town, I'm this old, I have kids, this is what I do for a living, this is what I want to do for a business. Like, you can build all that in and tell chat that, so it knows you, right? So then your board of advisors then would hypothetically know that as well. When they're giving you this, they could potentially provide you more regional type of advice based on what you're trying to do as well.
And the other thing that gets to that point actually is one of the things that I started doing a couple months ago now is like one of my chats is like a personal assistant chat. And the way I use that is every morning I have like 3 reflection questions that I answer into ChatGPT. And then I go, well, here's like things that are scheduled. Like these are just like on the day for this period of time. And then I go, here's my 3 priorities, like build my daily schedule. And on top of that, so I do the traction book. It's like I've gone through the whole VTO organizer. And it's like I've given it that. It knows like my rocks and my 10-year target and all this stuff. And so I've built this personal assistant around like, this is what I'm trying to accomplish business wise. I also have these like family life goals. And so like now here's what today looks like, build my schedule. And you know what my
Oh
KPIs
my
are and
Lord.
like what my like bigger, longer term goal is, keep me on track. And then the end of the
Oh,
day, here's my end of the day reflection prompt, update my KPIs, give me new reflections for tomorrow based on what I said went well or didn't go well today. And so the next morning, there's my new reflection prompts to start the day and get everything planned. So like
oh my
now it's all
gosh.
cycled. So now when I go to do these other things, like it just has all that in its
Yeah.
memory. So it has months of me doing business on a day-to-day basis. So like now when it's like I didn't have to tell it who I was anymore. It's just like I'm building a wholesale company. It's like, well, you're Maxi home buyers and like, just like knows all the stuff.
Yeah. That's so cool, dude. I'm getting so many great ideas from this. So, audience, if you're listening to this and if you're like tuning out, if you would need one of those headsets John talked about earlier to make sure you're tuned in, you are missing out on some really good stuff here. This is incredible, dude. I'm just thinking about that. We had consultants come in October. We're paying them thousands and thousands of dollars to sit with us and go through all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Why would we not just plug that in to a GPT and just have it keep us on track every day? And then we have our team put a scorecard together every day of how they did on the day, what their hots are, what do they need to focus on the next day, or what do they think it is. They could have their own based on their own personal goals for the year within us or the goals that we set for them. Oh my gosh,
Yep.
dude.
There's
So much
it's
good here.
really I mean, what time, I don't know, I forget what time it is or what time we have to get, but um there's so many ways you can go with it. And then the thing that has me really jazzed up now, that
Yeah.
like I'm looking to start, I don't know where I'm going to find the time to do this, but what I really want to do is, there's now this new layer of, I don't know what to call it. I don't want to get too technical, but basically when two computer programs talk together, it's like the application layer, right? There's a API
Okay.
that they communicate through with what it's called. There's
Sure.
a new one instead of API, MCP, which stands for Model
Okay.
Context Protocol. And so this
Okay.
exists so that your chatbot can now interface with programs through this Model Context Protocol. So instead of so like right now, right? So I use Trello. Like my
Yep.
my GPT can like output a list of things that I can copy paste and it just creates a bunch of Trello cards.
Okay.
With the model context protocol, it would just be able to talk to Trello directly. And
What?
so,
So then you're like eliminating yourself from having to go in and actually put the prompt
yeah.
in. It's just going to do it
So
for
you'd,
you.
you'd be talking to Chat GPT and I'd tell it like, here's my KPIs for the day. And it could
Yeah.
MCP over to Google Sheets and actually write those KPIs in a Google Sheet over there. Because now it can
Oh
talk
my
to Google
goodness.
Sheets just like it can talk to me. And so there are other
Oh my
things you have to
goodness.
set up and it gets more into the weeds as far as like the actual programming and some things like that.
Sure.
But that's kind of where now I'm really excited and I'm planning some projects around that of like, okay, now can I talk to ChatGPT but have stuff happen elsewhere so that I don't have to
Oh
take it
my
from there
goodness.
and put it into there.
That's so cool, dude. There's so much cool stuff happening right
Yeah.
now as we're living in this amazing time in the world. It's pretty crazy going from short circuit, being a crazy dream to we have a real life short circuit
Yeah.
happening right now, and we can utilize it to become more efficient and effective. The other thing too, you mentioned the DealCheck thing before. I would imagine, GPT, you could build your own DealCheck right in GPT, right? If you didn't want to use that software,
Yeah.
you could have it kind of prompt you. Here's the things. What are these numbers, or what does this look like, or whatever the case is. Maybe use deep research if you had to.
Yeah. That's something I wrote down because I got a list of like ones I want to try building, and that's on there. I didn't prioritize it because I have DealCheck
Mm-hmm.
and because
Yeah.
math can be where it struggles. Right? Like theoretically, it can do all that advanced math, but also like you better be able to know how to do it yourself to check it. Like if it spits out an IRR, I'm not sure I'm going to trust that at face value.
Okay. Would you use another like Grok or something to throw it into Grok and see if they come up with the same answer?
You could do
Or are
that.
they both kind of
Ideally,
using
like
the
I'd like
same?
me being me, like I would throw it into a spreadsheet that's like I know these
Okay,
numbers line up to that thing and have your like known test.
sure.
But for other stuff, like I have seen it work pretty well for some other stuff. Like when I was messing around with the AI board of advisors that I
Hmm.
made, I was like, I want, I told it how many deals I want to do a month and like average thing per deal, and then like average revenue per deal or profit per deal. And like the Grant Cardone person in that like spit back, like, if you're going to have that revenue and it was the right amount of revenue, if you like put those numbers together in a year,
Yeah,
then like you got to have X sales, like you got to have these many sharks on your team, just like crushing the phones, it's like in, in his voice. And I was like, all
that's
right, it did get the
awesome.
math right. It was a pretty simple math problem, but it got it right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was thinking the board of advisors things too. And not speaking of another show is I think it's called The Men Who Built America. And it's like Ford and J.P. Morgan and a bunch of those guys from back in the late 1800s, early 1900s that were the big titans of
Yep.
industry. And you could get some of that kind of stuff in there too, and have Henry Ford telling you what to do or something. That'd be pretty sweet.
It'd be awesome. And that's like, yeah, you can,
Yeah.
anything that you can do research on and feed it the knowledge, like we have that history, so you can teach it to talk and have those viewpoints.
Holy cow! I love this stuff, man. John, this has been awesome. We're gonna get going to a wrap because I know you got a real job and you have a business that you have to build and a lot more GPTs to build. So, what are there any other just quick hitter tools that you think the audience would really benefit from, or that you think would be kind of neat to throw out there?
Oh man, I mean, if you haven't played around with deep research in Chat GPT, play around with that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'll throw out. There's a Facebook group I'm in, AI prompts for entrepreneurs. I'll
Oh,
throw
okay.
that out there because if you want some inspiration for what people are doing, you can check that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's really really good group. People are dropping pretty awesome prompts like in there to try out. And I don't use the save post very often on Facebook, but I do when I'm going through there. I'm like, oh, this looks pretty cool. Like I would like to see how this would work in my business because it's like 450,000 people in this group across all industries that are just like, here's what I'm using this for. Like
Oh,
here's a
wow.
prompt that I used, and like so it's all sorts of people who are doing all industries, all types of sales,
Super cool.
and they just put their prompts in there and let people try out. So that's a place to
That's
check out.
that's pretty. That's pretty amazing, man. I know you mentioned deep research, and I think I talked about this on another episode. Maybe
I
it was
think
with
so,
Mike
yeah.
Higgins. We talked about some deep research stuff and some GPT stuff. But I know I'll just to reshare it again if people didn't hear that. That deep research saved me probably a month of legwork where I was looking to build some new construction, multifamily stuff, and so I put in, here's what I want my LTV to be once everything's up and running. Here's how much cash I have. Here's how much I can invest, blah, 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 blah. Here's the areas I'm looking to do. And I hit deep research. And then it gave me like, I don't remember if it was like 5 to 10 questions based off that. They're like, well, what about this and this and this? And I was like, oh, these are great questions, So I'm responding back. And then it's like, boom. And it goes out in maybe 20 minutes, maybe a half hour later. I've got basically it telling me not to do it.
Yep.
I was like, okay, all right, thank you. You just saved me a month of ruminating on this and phone calls and digging around and trying to run the math and doing all these different things. And you just did all the research for me to come up with some of that stuff. Now I've seen it on the other side. We've used it to run
Mm-hmm.
comparables in our business. And we had to do deep research on a 4 unit, for example, and trying to figure out ARV on this thing or what it's currently worth. And I did not like it at all. It was pulling comps from like 2020. And I was like, yeah, we don't want that. So I might have to build a custom GPT just to tell it how I want it to run comps. And then I'm sure it could probably run it better. But we were just throwing it in and saying, what's the ARV on this? Here's the data. Here's the address. Deep research.
Who's the contact person for the Wisconsin MLS? How can we build a?
Yeah, there we go.
Because that's what
There
you
we
need, the
go.
data, right? So it's like it's only going to
Right.
find what it can find. And
Yep.
if you
Yeah,
can,
it's pulling Redfin, it's pulling Zillow, and any historical sales data it can, but it's only as good as, like you said, the data that's available.
as you could give it that and say, here's as much as I, because you go, wherever your search thing is, whether it's MLS or otherwise, like there's only so many parameters, and sometimes you only got so many of them, at a point in time for the property. You're like, well, let's see what is the best, but you got to give it the best data.
Right. I wonder if they have a API or what, the MCC, whatever else you were talking about.
We got to find someone who a broker somewhere that wants this.
Yeah, well, I have a few I could probably talk to that would want it, so we'll get that hooked up. All right, John, I know you got to get back to your real life here. This has been an amazing episode. You're also going to be on our panel coming up at the REI Success Club. So if you guys got some value out of this and you're like, give me more of this, I want more of it, we're going to have an AI panel the 4th Tuesday of July, I think is when we're having you on, correct?
Yes.
So, yes. So come on out. It's at the Woods Golf Course. We open the doors at 6 p.m. for some networking. We kick it off promptly at 6:30. We do a little bit more networking after the panel. So the panel usually goes about an hour. We'll do a little networking for about a half hour and then just free networking after that from 8 till whenever you want to get out of there. But that's going to be an awesome panel. We have you, and I'm trying to remember who else we have. We have a couple other people that are maybe utilizing it in their own businesses as well on there. So this is going to be probably one of my favorite REI successes that we've ever had.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. John, before we wrap, we always like to ask a little fun question here. And this is really, we have people outside of Wisconsin. They might want to invest in Wisconsin. Maybe they're Ohioans or LSUans like yourself here, thinking about coming up to this great state and throwing some dollars into some properties here. For those that don't know, we like to tell them a little bit about the favorite places or traditions up here. For you, do you have a favorite Wisconsin place to visit or tradition that you've enjoyed? And you have the outsider perspective now coming in. So,
I mean, a blanket statement, just all of summer, right? But we just love lake trips in the summer. So as much as we can, we're trying to convince our friends from out of state, our parents, everyone to come up here, and just as many weekends as we can. We're going to Door County. We're going to Wild Rose. We're going to, there's so many lakes within an hour, 2 hours of where we are, and they're all a blast. You can do the campsites, you get the cabins, you can do something, you get hotel rooms, you can stay at the bed. Whatever kind of flavor of experience you want, you can have it. And all of them are great and everything's beautiful. And it just all has the Wisconsin vibe of we're just here and we're having a good time. And no one has to be, I don't know, Instagram worthy. It's let's just enjoy the lake. And that's what I love.
I'm with you, buddy. We travel a lot, and I always, whenever I come back to Wisconsin, especially in the summer or the fall too, the fall is a great time to be here. It's just man, we are really lucky to live in such a beautiful state and with so many lakes. Minnesota brags about their lakes. We're just we don't even need to brag about them.
I had no idea.
We have so many. Yeah, we have so many that we aren't even going to brag about them because we're just.
That's right. Never knew until I moved here, and it's just it's the best. Just we would. Like I said, we're always trying to recruit people to come visit. Why do we come to Wisconsin? I'm like, dude, because it's fantastic.
Yeah. Everybody thinks it's cows and pastures, and that's a portion of the state for sure. You can get on some pretty long drives here where all you see is fields and maybe a couple quick trips. But you can, if you look around, you don't have to look very far. There's plenty of water if you're into water stuff. So absolutely. Well, next time you're up in Door County, man, hit me up, and would love to hang out with you and the fam and catch up a little bit more and probably nerd out with you some more on some tech stuff if we have the opportunity. And thank you guys all for listening, guys. If you got some value out of this show, please share it. I say this every episode. Not only does it help us grow the audience, but it's also going to help you get the word out about, that you're into real estate and you're learning this kind of stuff, and you're going to be able to attract lenders. You're going to be able to attract deals. You're going to be able to attract contractors and other people that can help you accelerate your goals and get you closer to the end goal for yourself. If you are out there and you want to just have a conversation, like John mentioned, just calling me up 5 years ago, and you're not ready to necessarily get on a buyer's list yet, you're not really sure what direction you want to go with your career or with real estate, go to Wisconsin Discount Properties, just hit the contact us button, and either myself, Reese, or Connor from our team will reach out to you and have a conversation and try to get you connected up to this awesome community that we have here in Wisconsin for real estate investors. And with that, John, again, any last words before we part here?
Just say, yeah, definitely Corey's been a good resource for me. I know I shared that story, so definitely don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy I love talking to other investors, seeing what everyone's doing. If you have more questions for me, reach out. I'm just John Maxi on Facebook, pretty easy. Love to help however I can. Like I said, I got a lot of help and support when I was getting started in the community up here, and so I definitely want to be able to give that back and help out however I can, whether it's bouncing numbers off or helping with some AI stuff or whatever. I'm happy to help. Happy to chat.
Sweet. Awesome, brother. Well, excited to see you in a few weeks. At the time this will probably pop, and we'll have even more discussion there. So if anybody wants to come check out John, end of July will be the time to do it. Until the next episode, guys, we'll see you soon.